Great to see you.
Good. It's good to see you again as well. Feels like just yesterday we were here, weren't we?
Yes, yes. I see you got some good reading material there on your desk.
Diversity of income streams. Don't buy it at Polyface, buy it at shopshepherdess.com. In fact, this is the plug for the meeting. This is the book on beef that turned me into a shepherdess.
I love it. That's very clever. Very clever.
Did you finish with your other book that you were working on last winter?
It's close. It's close. It's not done. The final edits are done. Now we just have the cover to do, and we've got the picture section to do, index. But yeah, it's very, very close. We hope to go to the printer with it by, I don't know, mid-June maybe.
Are you allowed to say the topic?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the title is Homestead Animal Happiness.
Ooh.
And the subtitle is Success with Livestock on a Small Scale.
Okay.
And so basically it's everything that we've done at scale, everything we've done at scale miniaturized to a small acreage.
That's a really good idea.
I thought so.
Whoa. That's a really good idea.
Thank you. Now I can do it. She said it's okay.
No, I like it very much because I only have 30 acres, and that's kind of like that's my thing. Think big, start small, don't quit.
Right.
Hey, we're gonna start inviting people in now. Okay, you ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
All right. Okay, guys, welcome in. People are coming in, and we're admitting them as we go here. Okay, a few preliminary things, guys. I might go through this again once everybody's here, but your audio is muted just to avoid a lot of extra background noise. But if you want to talk, there's going to be a slot for that. You just have to comment with a chicken emoji that you want to talk, and then you'll get 60 seconds to say whatever you feel like you want to say. And then if you emailed your questions in advance, we're going to go through those first. And then any other questions, guys, just leave them in the live chat. I'm going to ask the first question, Mr. Salatin. Okay, so you are a proponent for diversified income streams as a farmer. You yourself are an author, a speaker, and a tour guide. Did these opportunities emerge organically, or did you realize at some point that you needed to deliberately pursue this diversity?
They really came on organically. Now, in other words, there was no plan. There was no grand plan. The only plan was making a living on the farm. And what happened was that when we were able to make a living on the farm, we didn't have off-farm wealth. Our family was not wealthy. We drove a $50 car, lived in the attic of the farmhouse. If we didn't grow it, we didn't eat it. We had 2 kids, never bought a package of baby food, used cloth diapers, and never had a stroller or a backpack or any of the things that you're supposed to have when you have babies. No, we lived very frugally, and what this enabled us to do was to survive, and then to actually thrive on a very small farm. As just, a family. And so that story of non-wealthy couple, bootstraps, full-time farm, that idea caught the attention of a lot of people in the farm media, of course, but also in the regular news media, when so much of the farm news is pessimistic and it's awful and young people don't want to go to farms. And here we were doing this, and fortunately I had a gift for communication. I was in all the high school plays. I debated throughout high school and college. I entered essays and won. I think I won every essay contest I ever entered. I'm not bragging. I'm just saying this communication was a gift that I honed, that I practiced. And when I first got asked to speak, I practiced in front of a mirror. I figured if I could keep myself interested in my topic, maybe everybody wouldn't go to sleep. And so it definitely developed organically. It was never in the plan. It was never, in the deal. It just developed, and we didn't ask for it. It came.
That's good. So those organic opportunities emerged because you had a story to tell, because you started in a different way.
Yes, that's right. And it was an interesting story, and a story that actually fired up people's imagination. That that they actually could
deal.
do that. It was an empowering story. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and that's just a general marketing principle, because your story builds a relationship, and that relationship builds trust, and that's what people need to be your customers, really.
Yeah,
okay. All right. It looks like we have just about everybody in here. I'm going to make a couple of announcements, guys, because you are all here just about. If you guys have questions, go to the live chat. A couple of people emailed them to me in advance, and we're going to go through those first, but please find the live chat. Give me a thumbs up to make sure that you guys know where the live chat is at. If you need any instructions, Rachel, please be on standby to give people instructions on how to do live chat. All right. We are here with Mr. Joel Salatin, author of 14 books. I only read one, Salad Bar Beef, which is the book on beef that turned me into a shepherdess. You can buy your copy at shopshepherdess.com. But before we get started for the day, are you guys ready for a giveaway? Yes? Okay. Get ready to take a picture of the screen. And Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, at whatever social media platform you have, tell everybody what a great time you had tonight with Joel Salatin and the Shepherdess. If you want to mention me, that's okay too. Tag at Harmony Farm Storpers so that I know that you guys did it, and I can send you your sticker. All right, we're just going to do speed round here because we have a lot of questions, and I'm going to go down the list starting with Justine's questions, which are: you feed kelp to cows. What about salt and pellets?
Yes, they also get salt. So our mineral mix is 1/3 basically by volume, 1/3 kelp, 1/3 Redmond salt, and 1/3 Fur Trail Poultry NutriBalancer. And you say, well, poultry NutriBalancer? Yeah, well, because it's a very all-purpose mineral with a lot of calcium in it. And so that's our 3-part mix. That's our year-round mix. Sometimes the cows eat it, and sometimes they don't. But we figure a cow knows all she needs to know to be a successful cow, and she doesn't watch TV or watch or see advertisements, so she's not peer dependent. So she's free to make her own decisions.
Good. Next question. We're gonna go speed style, but don't abbreviate your answers. People need all the info. So, but we're gonna keep going one after the other. Can you feed kelp to goats and sheep too? I heard you should supplement with Redmond selenium.
Yes, absolutely. You can feed kelp. Everything can eat kelp. In fact, I dip my finger in it and lick it every now and then too. You can eat it yourself.
That's good. Is that your vitamin supplementation plan?
Yeah, the beautiful thing about kelp is that it's the same nutritional or nutrient mineral balance as seawater, which is also in the same mineral balance as healthy blood. Okay, so it's not about how much of one. It's not about how much of one thing you get. It's about how it is in ratio to everything else. We hear balance, and so nature has already balanced this material for us, and it's in chelated form. So if the animal needs it, they uptake that mineral, and if they don't, they just excrete it, and it goes back out on your field as a trace mineral. So you can't lose.
That's good. Can you use Basic H for deworming sheep and goats?
Yes, I haven't heard anybody have problems with Basic H.
I tried it one time last summer, and my sheep refused to drink the water for like 36 hours. I got so scared that I had to put extra water out there because it's like they're gonna die.
Yeah,
but it was odd.
Did they finally drink it? Did they finally drink it? No, not
really.
Boy, yeah, that's interesting. I guess the best answer I can say is I don't know. There probably are situations where there are, I don't know, personalities or
Yeah.
types of situations. You know, so I don't know. That's a new one. Always chance for a new twist. But
Yeah.
certainly,
All right.
I know people have used it. I mean, a folk wormer for sheep is pine branches, and to eat pine needles, and so we've done a little bit of that, and sheep will eat that. Of course, the best wormer is to cull any sheep that has it and move them frequently so they're on new ground all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So another question is, according to the Salad Bar Beef book, Joel Salatin indicates that a mobile chicken coop will not work on less than 50 acres. Does that mean a permanent coop structure should be constructed for small acreage?
No, and in fact, I've got a new book that should be coming out in early August. The title is Homestead Animal Happiness. The subtitle is Success with Livestock on a Small Scale. And the whole idea of the book is to take what we've done at scale and miniaturize it to smaller acreages. And when I say smaller acreages, I'm generally thinking of anything under about 40 acres. But of course, there are a lot of people that are buying homesteads that are 2, 3, 4, 5 acres, very, very small. But so to answer the question, my answer to this question is do a hybrid. So you have a portable shelter of some sort, but if you have a small acreage, the chickens, the chickens will range out a pretty good distance. Here's the problem. When the chickens become too familiar with a setting, they develop a routine. And so if they can't get far enough away from your barn or your shed or your back door to be unfamiliar with it, that's where they're going to come to. And they'll always roost on the porch swing, on the lawnmower handle, the tractor steering wheel. And of course, they leave calling cards behind everywhere they roost. So you go to sit down and then you've got, poop on your derriere. And so the idea is to create unfamiliarity. How can you create unfamiliarity artificially? Well, the way to do it is to only give them access periodically, reduce the access. So imagine a portable shelter that, let's say you're on a very small acreage, 5 acres. Okay. Well, one day a week, you open it up and let them have the whole 5 acres. Even a small group of 50 chickens would absolutely range over and cover an entire 5 acre place in a day. And so, pick a day that you're going to be home so you can watch for predators and things like that. And the chickens can cover the whole, kind of homestead area. And then they'll go back at night and you keep them penned up and you move them along, but you keep them contained for the next 6 days and you let them out on the 7th day. So every 7th day they get out. What that means is they never get familiar enough with your farmstead to leave their whatever their housing is, whether it's permanent, portable, or whatever. I'm a big believer in mobile housing, and I think that this is a way that you can have your cake and eat it too. You have a very small acreage, have portable housing, but you can also keep the birds unfamiliar enough with the small acreage that they will continue to come back to your housing, and you won't find eggs out in the fence row and out up in the barn.
That's good. All right, next question is, any suggestions for older parents of young kiddos to begin farming? We are living in Southern California with 3,000 to 3,500 square foot available. No harvesting on site is permitted. City permits 4 chickens maximum. Potbelly pig and rabbits only.
Yeah. So all I can say is do what you can, and I'm okay with some civil disobedience as well. I mean, if you have 6 chickens, is anybody really going to know? Don't ask, don't tell works just fine. So just push it a little bit. But chickens and rabbits are fantastic. If you don't have a rooster, the chickens are quiet. Of course, rabbits are extremely quiet. And it's interesting that they picked rabbits and pot-bellied pigs. They consider those pets. Well, you can be the first one to be eating your pets. So you can have rabbits, and so, but the question kind of, you led with the question of what can we do to get our children involved. And so my short answer to that question, the long answer is my book, Family Friendly Farming. The short answer is as soon as they hit about 8 years old, somewhere between 8 and 11 is the sweet spot for child entrepreneurism. By the time a child is 8, they know the value of money. They know what a dollar is. I mean, they know that this has value, and that's good. But after 11 or 12, then they become too kind of, peer dependent and bashful about marketing and selling and, being excited about their entrepreneurial thing. So on your little urban acreage there in California, where you are, I encourage you to have your produce, your rabbits, your chickens, but turn them over as subcontracted enterprises to your kids. Who wants to raise the rabbits? Who wants to do the chickens? Who wants to do the vegetables? And pay them for the rabbits, the eggs, the whatever they're doing, and run a profit and loss sheet, a balance sheet. Give them that, let them earn that money. And now suddenly they're not doing chores for you. They're doing a self-sustaining, autonomous enterprise for themselves. They're learning about money. They're learning about how hard it is to make a profit, how frugal they have to be about investment, capitalization, depreciation, maintenance, responsibility, dependability, all those kinds of things that you've empowered them to do, because now it's their business and not just part of your mandated chores.
Yeah, I agree on the young entrepreneurship thing. I started my first business when I was 10, and it fell in that window that you just talked about. I started to realize, oh my goodness, I need money to live. And yeah, so amen to that. They said the same thing. They're willing to relocate to a homeschool friendly state. This is the same person from the previous question. Hot or cold weather. Any suggestions on where and how to start? Now, I don't know if they mean where and how to start to get out of Southern California, or if you just answered that, but any relocation suggestions in case that was actually their question?
Yeah, well, look, everybody has biases. I have biases. My bias is, I don't want to be in a place that every 5 years destroys my home with a hurricane or a tornado. So I tend to, want to be in a safer, weather kind of place like that. I don't want to be in a floodplain down by a river. You're going to have weather anomalies, so you might as well locate somewhere where it's a little bit better than that. And then once you deal with the weather, then look at terrain, look at topography. There's hard land and easy land. Steep, rugged land is hard land. Gentle and flat and gentle rolling land is easy land to work with. And so think about terrain, think about topography, and now think about markets. I would much rather, this is a rule of thumb, I would much rather have 20 acres within 30 minutes of a city of 200,000 than have 1,000 acres 100 miles from a Coke machine. Now, I'm not advocating drinking Coke. I'm just saying that it's much better to have a small acreage near a market base than a large acreage far away from a market base. Because if you're going to brand yourself and direct market, try to pick up some pennies selling off your doorstep or developing a local clientele, it's going to be really, really hard if there's nobody around. And so think about a smaller acreage near a metropolitan area rather than a larger acreage farther away. And then you mentioned the regulatory environment and things like that. every state has regulations. Some are better than others. I will tell you that probably the least regulated state in the country is Missouri. But what's interesting is right now, I think Missouri is getting about 100 homesteaders moving to Missouri every single day. It's like the #1 destination in the country. Well, the problem with that is if all the homesteaders move there, who's going to buy from you? There's no market. And so I actually think that in many cases, places like California or, Connecticut or Massachusetts or Rhode Island, New Jersey, that are very heavily regulated because they have a kind of, an elite foodie, greeny awareness that overcomes the negative regulation. Here's the point. There's no paradise this side of eternity. So you pick your, you pick your demons, and I much rather kind of just be in a place where everybody loves me but the bureaucrats than be in a place where there's just where everybody is like me and there's no market at all. And so those are and rain and not rain. I mean, I plenty of people live in Arizona, Utah, Nevada, and places like that. But that's hard. That's hard country. That's really hard going. And if you take the capitalization money per dollar of production possible, whether it's carrots or cows, the cost, even though the cost of land in a arid area is way cheaper than it is in a more temperate area with better, I'm going to divide these at below 20 and above 20 inches of rainfall a year. Let's take 20 inches as kind of a benchmark there. The under 20 acreage is going to be less per acre, but the over 20 is going to be more. But the cost, I'll give you an example. Right now in like New Mexico, you can buy land for $500 an acre, but it takes 40 acres to grow a cow. Well, that's a cost of $20,000. Here where I am in Virginia, the land costs $5,000 an acre. That's 10 times as much, but we can raise a cow on 2 acres. That's a land to cow cost of $10,000 as opposed to $20,000. And so the actual land capitalization cost to the productive capacity of the land actually drops as you go to a more temperate area than it does in a more brittle environment. So that's something you want to keep in mind as well.
That is really, really good information, especially on I've seen that migration from highly populated areas to places like Missouri. I have some friends that are doing that right now. And I think as market farmers, direct to consumer, are we thinking about that when we make those decisions? And I really hope that we are.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that the average American farmer is now 60 years old, and there are people. I mean, I get a steady flow. I mean, I just got another letter today. I don't get a letter every day, but it seems like almost every day from someone looking for a young partner to manage their farm, take over their farm, or someone that they can inherit their farm to, or do a lease purchase arrangement. And that's why I'm a big believer. And your deal with start small and be incremental is so great on this, because what you need, yes, think big, start small, right? Don't quit. It's a great slogan. But the thing I like about it is what you need is a toehold. If you can get a toehold, so if you can get a toehold and get started, get a brand recognition, get some self-confidence, what'll happen is that as these farmers go out of business, right now in the next about 12 to 15 years, 50%, half of all farmland, all farm equity, land, buildings, and equipment is going to change hands in the next 15 years because of the elderly American farmer. Most of their kids don't want the farm, but they don't want to lose the farm. And so if you can get a toehold anywhere, That's why I'm a big believer in being near an urban sector. If you can, I know a couple right now that bought, right on a great big interstate. They only got like 10 acres, but it's on a major big intersection. Well, guess what? Now they've leased a farm down the road, another farm down the road, another farm down the road, and so they're able to scale. But they've got their little toehold that has 50,000 cars going by the front gate every day. That's the kind of situation you want to look at. Don't worry about buying the whole enchilada out the gate. Get a toehold. Get a toehold, and then you can expand as you learn the community, get a good reputation, pay your bills, and as people start to appreciate what you're doing, you'll have opportunities come to you that you never even imagined.
Yeah. And not only that, but if you do find a more profitable angle, you can pivot without a bunch of cargo flying off the sides.
Right. That's exactly right. You have a speedboat instead of an aircraft carrier.
Right. Exactly. Bart asks the same sort of question. We are in California. How long do we have to exit the state? Where should we relocate to? We are thinking about Central Texas. That's where I'm at. I like it here. Mm-hmm. And I think it kind of addressed it with the other topics as far as where should you relocate. Mm-hmm. All right. Ruth asks, I'm going to go actually with Travis's question first. How do you run your cattle operation and have a good framework for understanding profitability? All right. So essentially know how it makes money.
Right. So this question is about figuring margins. And margins are the lifeblood of any business. If you can't figure margins, you're not going to make it in business. So margin is the spread between your income and expense on a given enterprise. And so overheads are things that you have to have whether you're running that business or not. So you've got cows. If you didn't have cow, overhead is stuff that you have to pay for whether you had cows or not, like farm insurance, perhaps your vehicle, your salary, that sort of thing, property taxes. Okay. That has to be paid whether you have a cattle enterprise or not, whether you converted it from cattle to turtles or turtles to sunflowers, that would stay the same. All right. So then you have your enterprise margin, and there's really only two ways to affect your margin, and that is to either decrease your expenses or increase increase your selling price. So the margin is the difference between what that enterprise takes in and the direct cost to that enterprise. And so the easiest way to figure this is to make sure that you categorize all of your expenses. So everything that's directly attributable to the cows, you categorize it. On our farm, we have about 220 categories, okay? So that we can tease out whether it's eggs, forestry, cows, pigs, broilers, turkeys, eggs, and we can tease these enterprises out. So all of the direct income goes into the income category. All the direct expenses go into the expense category. What's left over is the margin. In general, you want to run somewhere between a 30 and 50% margin between those two numbers, because it's that margin that then is going to get applied to your overhead. And so all those
quick question.
So
is that net margins?
Yeah. After you paid all your overhead, then you're going to have a net income or a net loss. Okay. But your enterprise. So I make a big differentiation between the whole business profit and loss and individual enterprise profit and loss. The reason is because in a multi-enterprise business, let's say you have cows, sheep, and pigs. All right. In a multi-enterprise business and podcasts. Okay. and so let's say you have these four enterprises. What did I say? Sheep, cows, pigs, and podcasts. Okay. All right. Each of those generates income, each of those has expenses. And so those enterprise profit and losses are your individual enterprise margins. The cumulative effect of all of those margins moves to your overhead, and then after your overhead is all paid, then you have a net profit or a net loss. And so a lot of times in a multi-enterprise business, the different enterprises are not generating an equivalent amount of money. For example, in our business here at Polyface, the hardest enterprise that we have to make margin on is our eggs. Okay. That, I mean, there are reasons for that. We don't need to go into it right now. I'm just going to tell you that of all of our enterprises, eggs are the hardest thing to maintain margin on. Okay. But so it has the lowest margin, so why do we continue with eggs? Well, because eggs are our marketing gateway product. That's what opens the door for us. Everybody eats eggs. Everybody wants eggs. If we have eggs, then they'll buy pork chops and a T-bone steak. If we don't have eggs, they say, all right, see me next month when you have eggs. And so we know eggs are a gateway product. So sometimes in the whole mix of things, you're happy to have some lower margin things if they actually stimulate higher margin sales. So if you've got an enterprise over here that's generating a 70% margin, and one over here that's 20%, it may be that the 70% margin is actually being enabled by the 20% margin. But the way you figure your margin is to separate your expenses for that enterprise, your income for that enterprise, and run a P&L on that particular enterprise. That'll give you your margin and know whether you're making a profit or not.
That's good. Gilbert asks, Joel, how do you set up a grazing plan for your farm?
So in the winter, when the snow is blowing and I don't want to be outside and I do desk work. So what I do is based on history. So as you keep your records, you will gradually develop a history of your different fields and how much production they gave. Now, we measure all of our production in cow days per acre. So a cow day is what one cow will eat in 1 acre. The thing, you can't measure something if you don't have a constant. What kind of measurement would it be if you called a guy to build a barn for you and he walked in and said, well, now I'm going to use inches over here, I'm going to use metric over here, and I'm going to use bushels over there. You'd look at him and say, get out of here, you're a crackpot, right? And so what we need is a constant. We need bushels, we need pounds, we need inches, we need something. So our constant is cow days per acre. So we convert all of our herds, calf herds, cow herds, bulls, whatever it is, to cow equivalents. So for example, if a cow equivalent is, let's say, 1,000 pounds, and if yours is 1,400, you have to use a different figure, but we have small cows. And so we use a cow equivalent about 1,000 or 1,100 pound is a cow equivalent. Well, it takes 5 200-pound calves to make a cow equivalent. It takes one bull is 1.5 cow equivalents. A finishing steer at 900 1,000 pounds is almost a cow equivalent. Like 0.8, right? Cow equivalents. The point is, we're looking at this herd, and we're not saying we've got X number of head here. We describe that herd as cow equivalents. So once you know what your cow equivalents are, every day when you move them, you know how much you gave them, an acre, 2 acres, half an acre, whatever it is. You keep those records of cow equivalents, you add those up at the end of the year, and you can determine, well, this year, on field A, we grazed it 3 times, and it's 10 acres. We grazed it 3 times. The first time through, we got 35 cow days per acre. The second time through, we got 60 cow days per acre. And in the winter, we got stockpile. We got another, 50 cow days per acre. That gives us a total of 100 and whatever, what did I say? 145 cow days per acre we got from that field. Okay. That enters into our historical context as to the productive capacity of that field. We do that on all the fields, and then all the fields combined create a farm productive capacity. All right. So we sit down and make the grazing plan in the wintertime. We make the grazing plan. We've got this historical record, and we know that, well, for the last 5 years, field A on May the 1st generated 30 cow days of grass. All right. Well, that field is 5 acres. So 30 cow days at 5 acres, 150 cow days. We've got 30 cow equivalents in our herd. So the herd will go in that field for 5 days. We're going to divide it into 5 paddocks. We'll move them every day, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 through that field, and they'll go there 5 days. All right. That takes May 1 to May 5. Now, where do we go May 6th? All right. And you see, you build your grazing plan based on your best guess of your previous performance, and don't be conservative. It's always better to have a little extra feed than run out. Right. And so be conservative, but use your historical, and you build your grazing plan based on that. So that's the kind of big picture. I want to describe one more nuance though that's very, very important, and that is you never want to start in the same paddock every year. You want to skip. So if you started in paddock A this year, next year start in paddock F. Next year start in paddock M. Here's the reason. The forages on your farm, aren't looking at the calendar. They're responding to climatic conditions, day length, all sorts of things. And so different kinds of forages will respond to the same climatic conditions, but it'll be at different times of the year, but it'll be very similar. The red clover blossoms will always come within about a 10-day window every spring, right? The big blue stem, right? It will flower within about a 10-day window every single year. Okay. So here's the deal. If you start and you go, paddock A, B, C, D, E, every single year, and you start the same place and go through it every year, it moves you toward monocultures as opposed to polycultures, because you're not allowing different forages to fully express their genetic capacity at different times of the year. So part of the grazing plan is not only this, all right, here it is for the year, but it's also looking back and saying, all right, I started here last year, I'm going to start here next year, I'll start there the next year, start there the next year, so that you have this long rotation cycle, so that you don't come to the same paddock at the same climatic conditions in the same seasonal time period every year. And that moves you to a more diversified, luxuriant, diversified forage bank.
That's a really good one. So in essence, a grazing plan consists of measuring first, managing later. Especially somebody like me who's kind of new to this, I would do well to spend my first 2 years as a grazier just recording like crazy. And then I could begin to make definitive grazing plans, if that's basically what you just said.
Yes, absolutely. And so as you look back on those dates, see, you can see what the different fields do. And guess what? The neat thing about this is you can track your progress. You can say, wow, right, my trajectory, I started 10 years ago at 100 cow days per acre. And guess what? Now we're, the last 2 years, we've been up there about 140. That's a very exciting thing to learn for yourself. By the same token, if it's going down, then we're, something's wrong here. Our trajectory is down. So yeah, it comes with a constant measure, the cow equivalent or the ewe equivalent, or whatever you want to call it, for what works for you. 7 ewes equal a cow. All right. So, you can do this however you want to. And then the area. and that means you need to know, how much you've given them every day and how many days they're in a given field, how many acres that is, and then you just add it up. It's simple math.
Yeah. Okay, so Bart asks, can you give some examples of net margins? This is a bit back from our conversation with some examples of numbers. So if you had $100,000 gross sales, I think that's what he's asking. What would your net margins be?
All right. Well, just for fun, let's build a sample net margin. Margin. So let's build one. Let's take one broiler chickens. Will that work? We'll take broiler chickens.
Yes, sir.
All right. So the chick, I better start writing this down, or I'll forget what I'm saying. So the chick costs $1. Okay. The chicken in its lifetime of 8 weeks is going to eat 14 pounds of feed at let's just say 30 cents. So 14 times 30 is what is that? $4.20. So we got $4.20 in feed costs. Okay. All right. We have I've already worked this out because we have benchmarks. We move, it takes us 1 minute to move 75 chickens every day, and they're on pasture for 35 days. So just trust me on this one because I've already done this. So we allot at about a $28 an hour. That's a pretty good return for a farmer. It comes out to about $1 per bird is the what I call the field labor. Okay. And then it's 25 cents is what I call the brooder labor. Okay. So that's prepping the brooder, taking care of them. I mean, the brooder is doesn't take a lot of labor because, you're in the brooder. All right. Then we've got propane, at a dime per bird, both to produce it and to heat the scald water to process it. Okay. And then if our average bird sells for $15, we have a 5% marketing commission for all of our sales, anybody that makes a sales call. So 5% of $15 is an average of 70 cents a chicken is a sales commission. All right. And then we've got processing labor. Processing labor is about $1.50 per bird. So it costs about the same amount to produce it as it does to process it. And then you have 30 cents in bagging and ice, kind of what I call, post-process stuff. So these are all the expenses. Let's add those up. Let's see. We've got 620. We've got 5. So we have $9.05 is our total expense. All right. And we're going to sell that chicken for $15. So that gives us
not too shabby.
That gives us a $5.95 margin per chicken. All right. Everybody. So that's a margin. Now we can't put that in our pocket yet because remember that $5.95 has to go to overheads. So it's got to go, for example, to the truck that we use to bring feed and haul the chickens in, things like that. It's got to go to property taxes. It's got to go to, farm insurance. Okay. So, there are overheads from that. And so that's not in our pocket yet, but that does give us, if we divide $5.95 by 15, that's a 39.6% margin. And what did I say? Your target should be somewhere between 35 and 50% should be your target margin per enterprise. Okay.
Yeah. So across your 220 enterprises that you previously mentioned, would you say that you average 30%?
Yes. But we don't have 220
as a average.
I didn't say we had 220 enterprises. We had 220 categories. Okay.
Categories.
So most enterprises have several categories, just like this. This had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This had eight categories in this one enterprise. Okay. So, there are numerous categories, but yes, we do in fact try to average around a 35% margin, and sometimes we're well over it, and sometimes it depends on the market too, whether it's a retail or wholesale, or if you're able to make a good deal or get a good deal or get a good deal on the buy. I mean, for example, I'll give you an example. So we have a huge market for ground beef. Grass finished ground beef is just, fantastic. And so, we have neighbors that have cows, and they call, they lose a calf, or, they get old or whatever, they call a cow. Well, if they take it down to the sale barn, that cow's going to bring, maybe $400, right? Mm-hmm. So what we can do is we can pay them $600. Well, they think they've died and gone to heaven. What they don't know is that cow is going to generate 400 pounds of ground beef that we're going to sell for $7 a pound, which is $2,800. We're going to have $700 in processing, $700 that we bought that cow for. So we subtract $1,400 from that $2,800, and then we got some marketing and different things. The point I'm getting to is that after you take off labor, land costs, and everything else, we're looking at a margin of $1,000 on a 28. Well, that's a 35% margin too on a cull cow. And let me, since we're drilling into this hard, let me just share one other thing. That the only way that there are three ways to increase profit. One is to decrease expenses. The other is to increase your price, your income, and the third way is to increase turnover. And so that's why
volume.
So turnover, so volume, yeah. So let and that's how the big industry works. They don't make a very big margin. I mean, these guys running, Pilgrim's Pride and Tyson chicken houses. I mean, they're netting 2%. Okay, very, very small, but they're running 100,000 chickens. Okay, and so a very, very tiny margin on with a lot of turnover can add up to profitability as well. So, there's a big difference between craft and commodity, and the industry certainly doesn't work on 35% margins. They work on, tiny, 3 and 4 and even 1.5% margins. But if you're moving, $1 billion, a 1% margin on $1 billion is a whatever it is, $1 million, right? And so, a lot of this is volume. And so if you can shorten your turnover or increase your turnover, then you can drop your margin some and still do really, really well because you're increasing your turnover or decreasing the time in inventory. Time in inventory is just investment that's sitting there. And so if you can increase your turnover, that's a positive thing.
Yeah, good. All right, next question is from Bart Weber. How would you go about finding a potential farm to purchase or take over, as you previously mentioned? Are there specific websites that list farms for sale?
Oh, I don't know about listing farms for sale. I will tell you in complete nepotism that my daughter-in-law Sherry runs a website called eagerfarmer.com. It's a matchmaking service. It's a matchmaking service for people trying to find a partner and young people trying to find, an opportunity. And she has used our, apprenticeship program, our years and years of apprenticeship program to try to create a vetting platform to help people through the jaundiced romance stage. The problem is that this whole question of I want a farm opportunity on the one hand, and I need a young partner. I'm aging out. What you have is you have desperation on both sides, and desperation on both sides does not generally make good decisions. And when both parties are needy, they tend to run into things. And so the idea of this platform is to actually create the difficult questions that nobody wants to confront when they're in the honeymoon stage, in the courting stage, and make sure that those questions get asked early on so the red flags can show up earlier rather than later.
Yeah.
But a lot of this is serendipitous. You can't always orchestrate it. You just have to. I always tell people, pick a place where you want to go. Pick a place you want to be. Maybe it's the place you already are. A lot of times, the best place is where you are. You have connections. You have friends. Maybe you have family. You have a reputation. Hopefully, it's a good reputation. If it's a bad reputation, you probably want to move, right? But if it's a good reputation, you've got now years of friendships and integrity to build on. And lots of times it's a matter of simply looking differently where you're planted, bloom where you're planted, and look at it with different eyes, and you'll find things. And serve. I mean, look, don't get all cultish and altruistic about, is it an organic farm? No. Listen, a lot of what I do has nothing to do with organics. How to weld, build a fence, dig a post hole, back a trailer, all these, run a chainsaw. These are all skills that have nothing to do with organics. Don't get bent out of shape on that. There's a lot of wisdom and a lot of experience out here. Put yourself out there, turn off Netflix and get out there and help one of these old geezers. Just sacrifice yourself, give yourself, and you'd be amazed the kind of things that can develop if you're the first one to offer yourself as a service to somebody else. You can't imagine what can happen after that.
All right. So Alicia Ellinger says, how do you find leased land and build an operation with leased land, cattle operation with leased land?
Yeah. Okay. So, so the leased land. So the first thing you have to have is a track record. And that's where I go back to my toehold. You've got to be able to take this potential landlord and say, here's what we're going to do. You got to be able to show that person what you're going to do. It might only be 5 acres, 10 acres, 15 acres, but you've got to have a toehold of something that you can show to build your credibility as a steward, as a land manager. And so that's number one. And then number two is you have to circulate in the community, and you have to build a reputation of integrity, of good land management. My mentor, Alan Nation, said, if you know how to make beautiful land, you'll never lack for opportunities to manage it. And so you devote yourself to making a beautiful piece of land. There are few things as beautiful as pastoral landscape with livestock and pastures, and people are drawn to that. And so once you have that test, if you will, that object lesson of what you're going to do, then the rest is academic. You have a lease, you get it as long as you can. You have to make improvements. You run an amortization on your capital improvements that you can't move to protect you from losing that. There are mechanical things to do, but I think the question was more kind of toehold than it was mechanics.
Right. All right. So do you have a mower? Oh, no. Joel Salatin makes hay, but mowing could result in stockpiling forage instead of hay for winter in Texas. So I guess the question is, do you mow in preparation for stockpiling?
So we do mow hay, and we're a little different than Texas. We're obviously a lot more humid than Texas. And so the beauty, every place has its asset and its liability. Our asset is that we generally get, dependable rain. The liability is that we're very humid here. And so humidity desiccates stockpiled forage. It actually sucks the nutrition out of the forage. And so as you go to a more and more drier, less humid climate, the palatability and nutritional density and capacity of stockpiled standing forage is a lot longer window of nutritive capacity than it is in a more humid area. And so our window of palatability after stockpile is, let's just say, 60 to 90 days. That's if you wait longer than that, it just turns to cardboard. Whereas in most parts of Texas, you can actually have a standing grass plant for goodness up to a year, and it's still fairly nutritive and palatable. Especially if you go to Idaho and Utah and Nevada, a lot of times they can stockpile even for 2 years. Where you go into those real low, dry rainfall areas, because basically the grass grows up and then it turns to raisins, and raisins will last for a long time, and so that's the silver lining of the drier area. And so we do make hay. The average hay feeding around here is 120 days a winter. We feed hay average 40 days a winter, so it's a lot less than average, but we still do feed some hay because of the May growth curve. The May growth cycle is so high. There's no way we can eat it all, and so by mowing it, we can restart we can prune it artificially on more acres than we can graze in order to restart the second growth cycle.
That makes sense. Okay, and then another question would be your shorter window of hay feeding, is that because your grasses have developed to a place where they're producing longer and starting earlier?
No, well, yes, a little bit, but mainly it's because of our grazing management, where we don't continuous graze, and so we allocate different pastures. And by the way, as I was saying early on, starting at different pastures, we also stockpile different pastures from year to year, so that they're, again, late fall, you got different species. And so we're grazing on winter stockpiled pastures that are different this year than they were last year.
Got it. Ruth asks, marketing live animals, how do you do it? Pullets, chicks, etc.
Marketing live animals?
Yeah.
Would you sell them? I'm not sure what the question is.
Well, like the difference between marketing a broiler chicken and a pullet that's going to lay for somebody. Do you do it essentially the same way? Same customer base?
Yes. Well, I mean, sometimes they're the same customer, sometimes they're different customers. I mean, we sell a lot of pullets to backyard operators who come and get their pullets, 3 or 4 or 5 for their backyard chickens. And of course they get their broilers, their meat chickens from us. And so a lot of times it is the same customer, and sometimes it's a totally different customer. Teresa's grandfather said, he was a farmer. He said, I have 2 rules on this farm. One is everything's for sale, and number two is if somebody wants to come today and pay my price, I sell it, because they might die tomorrow and I won't have that customer anymore.
I like it. That's pretty good. Okay, we are 2 minutes off. I don't think we have any time for more questions, but I'm going to ask this one from Bart, which is a question that answered itself. Are we headed for a golden age or an apocalypse in the United States of America? There's always time for redemption, I guess.
Yeah, the one thing I don't do is prophesy. All I'll tell you is I believe the Chinese proverb that says, if you keep going the way you're going to end up where you're headed. That's what I think. So if you think we're going a great direction, then we're probably into a golden age. If you think we're going a wrong direction, then we're probably heading for an apocalypse.
Okay, that's good. That's a really optimistic note to end it on tonight. But let's end it on a better one. Mr. Salatin, what is something really encouraging you could say for first-time farmers in their first year?
For first-time farmers in their first year, The most encouraging thing, I think, is that we have some of the coolest infrastructure. We live in a time where we've got electric fencing, energizers, bandsaw mills. We can make tinker toy portable infrastructure, shade cloth for shade. It's cheap. It doesn't blow around. We've got water pipe. I mean, when you start thinking, one of my favorite books is Thomas Jefferson's Farm Book, and I've combed that thing pretty steadily, pretty hard. And it's amazing that all of the 7 or 8 biggest frustrations that he had in his farming career, today's technology has solved every single one of them. And so let me tell you, I can't imagine living in a day without pipe, without water piping, without a front end loader, without a chipper, without a chainsaw, without electric fence. So we do indeed live in a farming technology golden age.
Yep. All right. That was encouraging. It makes me feel better about getting up and being a farmer tomorrow. All right. Do you want to plug anything before we leave? Do you want to sell anything of yours?
Well, I mean, our website, polyfacefarms.com. I've got a lot of books. There's a lot of information. If you like what you heard tonight, and thank you for providing this platform. If you like what you heard tonight, there's a whole lot more in the books. And we are hosting 7 gatherings at our farm this year. And for those of you listening to this podcast, the number 1 would be in September. We're hosting the Stockman Grass Farmer Gathering at Polyface, where all the top writers for Stockman Grass Farmer, Jim Garish, Steve Kenyon, Jordan Green, Ray Archuleta, the number 1 agronomist. All these people are going to convene here for 2 days, and food and fellowship, and right here at Polyface. And we'd love to have you join us and be inspired, encouraged, and motivated.
What are the dates on that one?
The dates on it. It's not a
you can
weather.
Find it later if you don't have it.
It's gonna be held no matter what. Unless there's an atomic bomb or an apocalypse. But the dates are September 16 and 17. September 16.
All right.
Yeah.
That sounds like a really good one.
It'll be fantastic. It'll be really fantastic.
All right. Well, Mr. Salatin, thank you so much for your time. This was great. Everybody had a great time, right? Everybody can nod their head up there in the little boxes.